Hello, friends. Welcome to the Ancient Health Podcast, where the East meets West. And I'm your host, Dr. Chris Motley. And I have a friend here, Lorrie Rivers, who is joining me today from the great state of North Carolina. And we have just met, and I can already tell that we're going to have a good friendship. Lorrie, I want to say thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Motley. It's awesome to meet you.
It's very awesome to meet you. And when I saw that we were going to be speaking today on the docket, Christy, my producer, she'll send me the notes and we talk about the guests, and I'm very, very excited because it talks about how you co-authored, how you authored with Deepak Chopra, with Wayne Dyer. And again, I'm not trying to take away, guys, when I talk about these stories, but I remember when I saw Wayne Dyer before he passed, and he was speaking in Atlanta. And I thought it was really, really amazing when I saw how many people came out to see him and how many people came out to see this guy speak, because I was literally at the book table and I looked beside me. There were some people from the Backstreet Boys, the band there. I was like, God, this guy's got some clout. You know what I mean? People come, all the stars are coming out. And literally at the very end, when this is about a year before he passed, I think so, about a year. Me and my other friend Rob went up and saw him before he got into his car, and he was so kind. And we were like, "Could you sign the book?" And he was so nice, and he did that. So it brought back some good memories. But one of the things I really appreciate about your channel, about your views, are how you handle chronic fatigue, chronic syndromes, trying to get down to deep roots. And we're going to talk about that today. But one of the things that everybody knows that whenever we go on the podcast is people love stories, and I love stories, and I love to see how you operate. And I want to know about you. Can you give us a brief description about yourself? Tell some things that, you want people out there to know.
Well, I'm from the South too, which means that I tell long stories. I don't know
Love
if
it.
you do that, but so I'll try to keep it brief. I will try to keep it brief. What I recognized is that I had chronic illness from the moment that I was born. So I think I inherited a lot of toxins and some infections and things like that. But it took a long time to actually recognize that. And it took being housebound and bedbound for
Mm,
8 to 10 years when I was in my 20s.
wow.
Yeah, to the point where my father had to feed me, and I had to give up a very promising acting career at that point and just really drop everything. And I'm sure very similar to your own experience and tons of people who are watching this right now, going to doctor after doctor after doctor and just experiencing the difficulty of not finding answers and going down rabbit holes, or not even rabbit holes, but just trying to address symptoms rather than
Mm,
really getting at what was causing all these problems,
mm,
right?
mm.
And so I honestly, I finally stopped going to medical doctors. I stopped going to most doctors and just started doing my research. And this was back, when I was in my 20s, the internet was actually still very new. And there
Say,
was not a whole lot of information out there on what I'd been diagnosed with, which was chronic fatigue syndrome, which of course is just this weird umbrella for a whole bunch of symptoms. And again, it's not letting us know actually what is causing these weird issues,
mm-hmm.
those weird symptoms, right?
Yeah.
So it was an interesting journey, but I consider it a great privilege because I had to start taking a look at things that, especially at that point, were considered to be very fringe. So things like energy medicine, right? That you're
Mm-hmm.
very familiar with. So I actually started off as an EFT practitioner.
Oh,
So
really?
tapping. Yeah, so
I
that was
love
over
EFT.
30 years ago.
But back in the day, that's pretty new. I mean, in that 30 years ago, I mean, that would get you some sideways glances, but I love it. So I mean,
It
I'm all about it.
Yeah, yeah, and especially in the South, right? So, yeah, but I actually started working with people over the phone, so this was before even Skype and especially before Zoom. So, yeah, so I've been working with people, coaching, whether it's energy coaching, and then I did slowly start to understand more about the physical aspects of these root causes. So I've been doing that for over 30 years now, and I did finally get myself out of that full, toxic burden. Of
Mm,
course, there are things that we still deal with, but I resolved Lyme, which I think is a part of your story as well, and I
mm,
know so many people deal with that, and it's very difficult.
mm,
And the nervous system support, the EFT tapping, and all the other nervous system support that I bring into all of my programs and everything that I do. That's extremely important. And then recently, the whole perimenopause menopause journey, which is very interesting because I just turned 50
oh,
just recently.
oh, congratulations. Happy 50th. Seriously.
Thank you. Yeah. So, just taking a look at all these things and these areas that we've gotten so misguided
Mhm.
really around with our traditional Western medicine here, which of course, I don't want to bash that. If you have an acute situation, absolutely so good at that. But for these chronic conditions that so many people are dealing with and more, and with things like menopause, which every single woman is going to go through, it's just not super helpful. So
This,
that's where I'm coming from.
oh, this, no, I love this, the explanation, because when you say it's a long explanation, I would say that, like, when we talk about long hauling or long haulers, I think it's one thing we want to jump into as well with like COVID. When you say, when you had to deal with Lyme disease and infections, and for everybody out there, when we talk about EFT, and Laura, you can jump in, so I don't want to like butcher anything. I always say the word butcher because I don't want to like make something, not describe it correctly. But EFT is it's a really beautiful technique known as emotional freedom technique, and um, you can tap. They call it beginning and ending points of the meridian system. And I'm again, Laura, I'm not taking away from the podcast. I just want to show people, like, if you're watching on camera, like, here's a little Chinese medicine doll. There's beginning points and ending points of a meridian, which is a highway of electricity. And when you tap those points, EFT uses that with certain phrases, with humming happy birthday, with saying numbers to access left and right brain. And I guess you're essentially right, Lori, like, you're trying to open up the gateways of energy that circulate through the body. And that way you can actually help the organs clarify and clean out certain emotions. And when we talk about EFT, I remember when I first heard about it, I was an editor at a paper in school, and I saw Dr. Mercola's EFT, and he was touting this, and I started using it in clinic when I was in school. Probably didn't know I was doing it in clinic. I was just doing it because there's people were coming in with emotional issues, and that would come to the next thing. It's about how much emotions were connected to your Lyme, to your chronic fatigue. For everybody out there who are saying, "I know my emotions give me some issues and could develop into these physical problems." How much percentage? I mean, that's a big, very big question for you, Lori. That you felt that your emotions contributed to your Lyme, that your emotions contribute to your chronic fatigue. Do you have, like, how much you had to work on it to help bring you out?
That is such a good question, and it's very nuanced too. And I would say that it goes both ways. And I saw this for my own recovery process and with all of my students and clients as well.
Mm,
And when I say that, what I mean by it is that it's not only that we can develop symptoms because of the emotions, but we also experience emotions because of these underlying root causes,
ah,
right? So toxins literally affect our emotions. infections. So if we're talking about parasites, we do a lot of parasite work, which is super fun, actually.
I
It
love
sounds
it.
pretty gross to begin with,
I love it. I'm
but it's
writing notes
so
down.
much
I'm writing
fun to
notes
be able to
down.
actually see the things that have been causing you so much trouble, And of course, we're talking about bigger parasites here. But those parasites, they release toxins, and some of those toxins are actual neurotoxins.
Mm.
So it is absolutely a back and forth. And one of the first things that personally, because I w- m- my nickname in college was stress ball.
Ha- ha-
I was
Stress
I was
ball.
such a oh, I mean, bless my heart. Seriously. I was such an anxious, depressed kid, teenager. I mean, I think for teenagers, it kind of comes with the territory for a lot of teenagers, not for all of them. But and young adult. And the first thing that started to give me some shifts with that was changing my way of eating
Oh, really?
and removing these irritants, things like, gluten and corn and sugars and all those kinds of things. And that was the first place that I started to have a significant reduction in anxiety, in depression, those kinds of things. It did not resolve physical issues for me. So for most people, it is an integral part of healing to change the way that you eat, but it's not going to get you all the way, right? But
Gotcha.
that was one of the first times where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I felt empowered for the first time, I think, to to know that I was able to start to be more of the person that I knew that I actually am. And that's one of my main messages as well, is that the reason that these difficult emotions are so difficult is because you know that that's not you, you know?
That's really good.
Yeah, and we find over and over and over again that as students heal, as clients heal,
Hmm.
they go, "Oh my gosh, I'm starting to feel like myself again." And that is such a beautiful thing. That's what we're going for.
I love the way, because I'm writing that down, starting to feel yourself again. Like when you talk about craving or changing foods, that we're talking about how toxins and infections and how food choices could contribute to your emotional being, could contribute to how you view reality. The truth is, right? Like, so you're saying too that, or I'm asking, when you change certain foods and you felt like you could gain control back of, like, you're not getting super anxious, you feel like you have control. So changing your diet gave you power, and you found a huge difference, right, when you change your food, and that physical somatic intake changed your emotional outlook. Is that right?
Absolutely. I'll tell you a story. I remember sitting at one point, I was so ill, and for some reason, I had gotten a whole bunch of bagels, and I was just eating and eating and eating bagels and crying
What?
and crying and crying. And so it took me a while to realize the cause and effect there. But I finally got it that, wheat, wheat products, all, and of course it's in, so many processed foods. And I started to finally make that correlation. It took a while, but it would usually take me several days after eating any sort of grain product to not be horribly, horribly depressed.
Wow. So I'm not interjecting. I don't want to interrupt. So you noticed after you ate the wheat product, you would see that you had depression even days after you ate it.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, yes, yes. And this is something, I don't want to minimize the emotional work that is so important to this as well. But again, it's a back and forth. So if you've been doing, and this is kind of the trap almost that I got caught up in, because I was so in the world of energy healing and emotional healing, which again is so important. It is an integral part of
Hmm.
healing for everyone, for everyone. But I was only focusing there for probably the first decade of my active healing experience. And so I was
Ah,
beating up on myself about not being able to shift things and about still having all of these, being on this emotional roller coaster and still having all these physical symptoms. And I just didn't know where to look for these underlying root causes and how to address them and how to address the physical aspect of it.
oh, that's
Want
beautiful.
both of them. But, for anybody who's listening and you have done the emotional work, oh my gosh, you've been working on it for years and years and years, and you still feel like you're not getting anywhere, start off with your food,
That
take a look at that first.
I do love this, like when you're talking about food, because when you hit it nail on the head when you said I've done the emotional work. I have been trying to go deep into my therapy. I have been noticing that I am angry or I have this issue, but I keep getting triggered. And you and I mean, I do frequency medicine. I literally use a biofeedback known as a resonator. I use this all day. And you've seen those too. I know you've seen these things. And we're using muscle testing and using different types of biofeedback devices. And over the years, I agree that some individuals, which I agree with in many ways, like they'll go, well, it's all emotional. And I do see that. But I'm with you where I'm like, no, but it also is your food choices, your physical environment, the things you do have huge impacts on your emotional output, which I'm thinking sometimes do you feel this way though? That whenever we get into this realm of the emotions and the mental, emotional, and psyche area, that we can often forget that there's a physical, structural, biochemical aspect of it, and I think we can hyper focus on emotions when you're talking about like just to make sure you don't eat literally tons of bagels because, for instance, I would have I had a stomach issue. I had a ruptured ulcer in 2017. But before that, before I had the rupture, I noticed this time, Lori, every time that I kept getting this huge distension in my stomach. All that to say, I would put avocado and coconut milk in every single smoothie I had. And then when I went and got my testing done, I found out that I had huge sensitivity to the tyramines in the avocado. I had problems with the sulfur in the coconut. And when I took those out, literally my stomach calmed down. Worry is with stomach. My worry started to go down because I wasn't distended so much. So I'm totally on board. So I want people out there, she's such a very important fact. Find the food you're sensitive to or the physical things that cause it. So I hope I didn't take that away from the story, Lori, but
No, that's
it's a very
that's
important
perfect.
fact.
Yeah, and I also want to add that a lot of the foods that are considered to be health foods are actually quite problematic for people with chronic symptoms. So,
Mm.
you mentioned avocado. Oh my gosh, we love avocado. It's a super healthy food for a lot of people. But it's also a histamine liberator. It also has these other compounds in it that can be very difficult for people. So, in the programs that I teach, we actually take a look at different types of foods.
Ooh.
And so, for example, nightshades. These are things like tomatoes, white potatoes, eggplants, things like that. Something like 80% of the population actually has a sensitivity to those. And so many people, just by cutting out your grains, your nightshades, will notice a huge difference. And it doesn't have
Wow.
to be a forever thing for everybody, but just giving your body that chance to breathe a little bit, right? Histamine, oxalates, things like that.
Oh, I'm with you. One of my mentors, two of my mentors would always tell me, I'm so with you, Lori. They would say, check out histamines, check out oxalates, which are in the cruciferous vegetables, check out tyramines, which are in chocolate and avocado, salicylates. and these small components that you think, lectins, for crying out loud. And you're right. It's little components within foods that my mentors told me to check. And I remembered, Laura, I'd be like, why in the world would I worry about, this, and this? And then we do some testing, and then you find somebody does have a nightshade issue, and you get them tested, and they can't eat, like you just said, those foods. And I'm like, literally, they are just pushing inflammation, even though these foods are considered really good. I'm with you 100%. So we got to talk about this. Is really great. We see eye to eye on that. When people do finally find that, it was the potatoes, the white potatoes I was eating, or the jalapenos. I remember one time, and this is no knock on anybody who eats a lot of salsa, because I incredibly love salsa. Like, I love salsa. But I've had patients that they had basically nightshade issues, right? They had nightshade issues, and there are some nightshades in certain types of peppers. Some people had depression, and they get off the salsa, because I'm doing my testing. My mentor told me, I was like, well, I'll check it and see if it works. And they'd be like, Doc, I don't know what that happened, but I don't feel depressed anymore. I'm like, because there's those biochemical pathways, which, like the testing you do. So what kind of testing do you like to start out with? Is there a certain route? Like, when you start to see, do you find out more about their emotions, or do you go right into testing?
That is a great question, and I think that I might surprise you here.
Mm.
We rarely test until a ways down the road,
Okay. Yeah.
because when anyone comes to us with chronic symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
we know that they're going to need some liver work. We
Mm.
know that they're going to need to probably start taking a look at their foods, and that these are the foods that they're most likely going to be having issues with. And
Ooh.
what I also want to say about the foods is that, again, it doesn't have to be a forever thing, because once you start to address the root causes, so once you start to allow the toxins to be released from the body, once you start addressing these hidden infections, once you start doing the nervous system work,
Mm-hmm.
once you start addressing environment, you mentioned environment before, and of course, somebody living in mold, they're going to be having emotional issues, right?
Completely. Yeah,
We had a
totally.
mold infestation recently that we found in the crawl space of the house. We couldn't figure out for a couple of years why both of us were so tired after all this wonderful, work that we've been doing. It's gonna cause problems, right?
Yeah,
And so
totally.
many clients and students come to me with mold issues, whether it's current or from the past. So anyway, once we address those 4 things and do it in a very well, really 5 things, because the liver function, we wanna start destagnating the liver,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then, of course, if it's a woman and she's in perimenopause or menopause, we also take a look at hormone levels, because the ovaries are piecing out around that time, and so we
Yeah.
wanna take a look at that
Aw.
as well. So once somebody has gone through those for several
Mm.
months, certainly we could do something like a total tox lab,
Total
and
tox lab.
we do that with some people, but you don't have to do that to start to. And I'm not saying that it's not a good place for some people to start off, but it saves people a lot of time and money to just go ahead and jump in and start addressing these things that we know are the root causes of what they're experiencing. Then we
S
can get more specific, right? Okay, so are
Oh,
there
yeah.
still heavy metals left over that specifically need to be addressed? Have we taken care of all the mercury that's, built up over the years in the body from amalgam fillings or whatever? Have we taken care of all those other heavy metals that are in there? But again, that's down the road, at least in our approach.
I like that, because is it, Lori, where a patient comes into you, and so sometimes I have patients that I do in person. I'm pretty much all in person as well, like virtual and in person. But they'll ask me, Doc, do I do what kind of testing? I want to do testing, and I'm like, well, I honestly think that you could possibly be upset with me if I gave you testing and I knew what the result were. Like, I know you have this. Like, I know you have yeast. Like, there's no point in me going to give you the test. And so it's that approach. It's like, we know you're toxic in this area. We might as well clean the crud off the top. I hate to use that terminology, but clean the crud off the top. If something's very stubborn or stagnant, then we go in and find out if there's something hanging around. Is that how you would look at it?
Absolutely. And, most of what I offer are online group programs.
Ooh.
So that way people come in and they go through it the protocols they can still we we teach you how to customize the protocols to yourself,
Hmm.
but they're going to be pretty much the same progression, the same components
Hmm.
for most people, right? And again, then, if along the way they wanna take a look at that total tox burden and get more specific about it, but like you said, there's gonna be crud there. I think that is the technical term, actually. So let's go ahead and get rid of the crud that we know is there, and then we can take a deeper look because, we end up saving you money that way, you end up saving time, and you get to go ahead and start the process right away rather than
Exactly.
having to wait for the labs.
I think it's really good because, we could even talk how that shifts into like the chronic cases. So, like, let's say somebody comes, Lori, to you and says, "Hey, I've got these issues. I suspect long COVID," as an example. At times, I want people out there to look into it as us saying that if you have all these symptoms, there's possibilities that there could be something else in the liver that could keep you from going after the long haul COVID efficiently. And we might as well try to clean all that extra stuff up so you actually can concentrate on one area. And so when that happens with Lori, like, let's say I love to talk about long COVID. I'm not trying to divert too much, but you do work with a lot of people with long haul COVID. What is some of the things like when you start to clean up some of the junk? I hope I'm again. What are some of the angles? Like, if somebody out there is listening, saying, "What is one of the organs that you would clean out the most?" As you start to lead into long haul COVID, or they come into you and they say, "I have long haul COVID." Is there a certain pattern you see in patients, or is everybody totally different?
Yeah, so what I would say is that again, why was the body's immune system compromised to the point
Mm,
that it developed long COVID? We always go back to these 4 root causes, and then I kind of add on menopause as a kind of a fake 5th root cause, but, it always goes back to those 4 root causes, so we always start there. Now, we do take a look at spike protein at some point,
mm,
but we also take into consideration, where is this client, this student on their sensitivity spectrum? How
mm,
much support can their body actually handle right now?
mm,
Meaning,
mm,
do they start off with a very sensitive approach? Because a lot of people, I don't know if you found this, but a lot of people who come to me, especially with long COVID, are super sensitive to the point where even just one supplement can cause a lot of responses in the body,
yes, yes,
right? So
yes,
we have
totally.
to we have to take a look at what the body can handle in terms of support. We usually start off with mitochondrial support and get moving in that area. We make sure that people are pooping. Are you pooping? I went without pooping for like 2 years
No, that's exactly
when
right.
I had
Mitochondria.
the severe ME/CFS. So I know how horrible that is, and it is like the root of all evil for
Yes.
chronic illness,
No.
really. So we have to get that going again as well. So those are the 2 main places that we start. And then, there are other ways that we approach, yes, liver destagnation absolutely is a super important place to look at. Also gut health, if you're dealing with leaky gut, which if you have chronic symptoms, I'm going to venture to say that you are absolutely dealing with leaky gut.
That's right.
Most
That's
a
right.
lot of people in today's, world are dealing with leaky gut because of all the weird herbicides and pesticides that we have out there. But,
Wow.
we take a look at that. We start removing the larger parasites. So these are these steps that we take. But again, it depends on where the person's body is. They might need to take this very, very, very slowly. And we might need to focus on more energy medicine related things in the beginning. We might need to be using more topicals rather than orals. We might need to be thinking about other ways to get these tools, this support into the body, like rectally.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
sensitive people, that is a good way to. I always do this.
Truly. I
And
mean, if
crack
you did,
myself up.
yes.
But, seriously, that is a much gentler way and oftentimes more effective way to get this information and this support into the body.
Yes, like people who do castor oil prophylactic, literally people are saying my bladder is healing up and all my reproductive infections are going away because I use a prophylactic castor oil pack, and I'm like, and they don't get oversensitive. That's that. And okay, Lorrie, this is great. So you do, like, when you're looking at people, you're like, they're very sensitive. There's some people out there saying I can do 5 drops of a tincture, and I just go, my head starts spinning. And so we have to look at, like you're saying, if they have mitochondria, if they actually can produce energy, if they're at least pooping. So if you guys are out there not pooping, we got to make sure you're actually going once to twice a day. Liver and gut health because they have leaky gut. Now, okay, can you just remind everybody when you say why was the body compromised in the first place? So could you go over those 4 root causes again? Because I want to make sure we put those in the show notes, like real quickly. Like I'll write them down one more time.
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because this is where it gets so simple, right? We have toxins.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this includes everything from heavy metals to herbicides and pesticides to mold and microplastics and all that stuff, right?
Okay. Yep.
Toxins.
Got it here. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Second one is infections. This includes
Infections.
everything from parasites to Lyme to EBV to, any kind of critter or virus or whatever it is that's in the body that the immune system, and this is key too, that the immune system is not able to deal with properly.
Gotcha.
Because every single person or animal or living creature or even plant alive is going to have some type of parasite and viruses and limes and all this combination of things in the body. It just has to do with how the body's immune system is able to deal with that or
Gotcha.
not deal with it,
Mm,
right? And
mm.
and the prevalence of that in the body of those infections. So that's number 2. Number 3 is our nervous system support, right? So
Ooh,
this
ooh, ooh.
also to me includes the energetic side of things. So our biofields and all that good stuff that you're such an expert in.
I love biofield talk. I mean, just that's the way to my heart, Laurie. That is completely the way to this guy's heart. You can make me a great, cocktail. That's great. You can do all this, but you talk about biofields, that's where my jam is. Okay, I'll stop. I'm gonna get it. Like I'm getting excited about
All
that.
right, I
All right,
actually wanna see if I can interview you about biofields. I would love to do that.
we can do some biofield talk because I'm not saying I'm an expert at, but I say I love talking about it because I study it as much as I can. So you got the toxins, we have infections, we have nervous system regulation or healing, and then the fourth would be
Environmental. So here we're talking about your EMFs, your, mold that might be in the environment that needs to be mitigated, your light sources we're talking about here.
oh yeah,
Yeah, right?
yep,
And
totally.
I would include also whether you're getting sunlight in this. We've gotten so weird about our relationship with the sun. And
Oh
part of
yeah.
that is because of seed oils and all these weird things, and so people are developing skin problems from being out in the sun, but that's when we take seed oils out of the picture, the sun is I mean, it's life-giving. It's you know, it's
It's
this
like
beautiful thing.
plants grow from the sun. You need it, basically.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is so good. So when you start to clean this out and you start to see that these infections, so you need to make sure that, like, we're all saying this together. Like when a patient comes in and they say, I know I have COVID, but even before you go after the COVID, you have to make sure that they're, like you just said, their toxicity loads lower, heavy metals, if there's any other type of infection that's occurring in the body, and you may find that. And because I don't want to take away, because there are a lot of people that have long haul COVID, but this is the truth. Like if they have nervous system issues, or if they're in mold. Now, would it be that they got COVID, as an example, because all these other things were in the background, and the COVID is what pushed them over the edge? Would that be that? Is that
You
what it would be?
totally got it. I talk about it in terms of a stress bucket, right? And I ran across this decades ago, this concept of, we all have this stress bucket. And it naturally, it's supposed to be really big, but because
Mm.
of everything that we're exposed to and the stressors and things, the bucket itself starts to get smaller. And then you have more toxins that keep coming into the bucket,
Ah.
and you have more stressors that keep coming into the bucket, and then you have things like COVID that start coming into the bucket, and and you're exactly right. Whether it's COVID that's the thing that caused the overflow of the stress bucket, or whether it is, a car accident that you got into, or whether you're going through a difficult time in your relationship, or you had a difficult pregnancy, whatever it is for you, and it's not necessarily one event. And I would say that it's never just one event, but a lot of times you look back and you go, when I got that weird virus, or when I got COVID, everything fell apart."
Uh-huh.
When in fact, it had been building for years and really decades usually.
Everything fell apart. Okay, I'm writing this down. This is great, because apart, and then in fact had been building for years.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes I have some of my students sometimes will be like, "No, I was perfectly healthy before that." And then we start to go back and take a look at their symptoms, and we go, "Oh," they go, "Oh, okay, I see what you mean
Yeah,
now."
yeah.
Even, I'll give you an example. I love this example because it's so, because it's funny and it's very illuminating. So I had one client come to me, and he was, you know, healthy in his late 40s, I think, but he just wanted to optimize. And he said,
Mm,
I've been hearing about all this stuff about liver health, and so I want to do some of that with you." And
mm.
we're like, "All right, yeah, great, awesome." So the only things that he was dealing with that he told us about was sleep apnea. And he wasn't super overweight or anything, maybe a couple extra pounds. And so we did a super supported style of liver flush. It was not the typical Hulda Clark style, which, can still be helpful, but that's a whole other discussion there.
Yeah,
But we have
yeah,
a
and
very
that'd be a great
specific
discussion,
liver
actually,
flush.
but yeah, keep going. This is
Yeah.
great.
And what happened was, I wish I had a picture to show you of this, because what came out of this guy was astounding.
You're
And
like,
we see this a lot, but again, for him to not have, I mean, just stones and stones and stones and stones and stones.
yeah.
And he felt so much better afterwards, and he was like, "Oh my gosh." And he continued with some of the other protocols that we recommended. And the next spring, we hadn't been in touch for a little while, but he reached out to us and he said, "Hey, I didn't even think about this when I was working with you guys, but spring just hit, and I just realized that for the first time in as long as I can remember, I didn't have to take some kind of antihistamine for seasonal allergies.
Yes, yes, yes. No Zyrtec, no, Mucinex. I didn't have to do that.
Exactly, exactly, and again, this is somebody who did not have chronic symptoms. So we don't think of liver destagnation is so important for anybody and everybody in this day and age, but especially if you have chronic symptoms. I don't remember where we started with this
No,
particular
no, this is beautiful.
thread. I
So
think I was trying to bring it back around, but
no, it's true. This is great because the gentleman who came in who didn't have seasonal allergies because you start off with a liver issue. It's the individuals that we all go through this, and I'm not picking on anybody that when they come in and they say, I feel completely fine. I got sick, and then all of a sudden when I got this, everything went downhill. But if we could find the small signs and symptoms, as in this gentleman always said, I have seasonal allergies. Like, for instance, I have patients that are young boys, young girls too, but young guys come in and they're like, I have chronic, horrible allergies. And what we usually find after we clean all the crud off the top is that they have some form of herpetic virus that's been in their sinus, in their throat for a long time. And you could get COVID, and COVID could totally push them over the edge, but it was really that nasty virus that was probably in the system. Is that what you're getting at? Because um, when you say that things were lurking underneath, I am totally 100% with you, because there comes a point when it's like when everything falls apart, and you just said it beautifully. It's like, but it built up for years. And
absolutely.
that's what happens when you do a test, right? You look at it and you go, well, you've got some liver issues, and I can tell you that right now. So that's the part we have to go after. Is that how you're focused
Yeah,
in your
and
practice?
again with testing, our liver testing right now is not super helpful
Mm.
because most of the time, like with that particular client who was, didn't have a whole lot of chronic symptoms, just the sleep apnea and the seasonal allergies. And his liver tests all came back fine. But he did have some significant stagnation in there. So we just assume again that first of all, if you are a human in this day and age, that you have some liver stagnation, destagnation work to do because of the toxins that we are exposed to on a daily basis, right? And
Mm.
also the way that I think about this, another analogy is that our bodies are like a house, and the house actually has termites.
Mm.
And we don't know about the termites, and the termites have been eating away at the foundation, at the structure for years, for decades. And then a strong wind or storm or whatever comes along, and that foundation is so compromised from that strong storm. And in this case, if we're talking about long COVID, that's the storm that everything falls down.
Yes. Yes. Everything collapses because your foundational root. And I want people out there totally to see what you're saying about when you have a liver test or if you have a kidney enzyme test. And I'm not sounding negative or trying to be pessimistic, but when you have seasonal allergies, when you have nighttime urination, when you have bladder pain, when you have UTIs, and the doctors tell you that, oh, there's nothing there, you don't have to worry about it. No, they're lying below the surface, and your body is very good at adapting. And that's what, like, Eastern medicine or, would say, like, your body is so good at adapting, it'll spend a lot of its energy trying to adapt to keep your levels balanced until you get pushed over the edge. Like you're saying, the termites get the foundation, then you get a mighty wind and it pushes over. So we want everybody out there. Like, that's why I love, do you like this story? I do. I like whenever you find the small signs and symptoms. I'm huge about, like, I look at people's facial diagnosis when they come in. I'm literally always like looking for the small signs and symptoms. Like, well, you got kidney stagnation because it's all over your face, and I don't pick on people. I love them to death, but when they say it, I'm like, you still have it, and I would say that to myself too. But you're seeing these, the stress bucket gets smaller. The termites are in the house with COVID. As an example, what are what is one of the best ways? Like, okay, Well, I don't want to go down that route. I'm going to confuse people. But I like when you say find toxins, you're finding the metals, you're finding pesticides, you're finding all these things. When COVID comes into play, do you find, again, it's pretty general, that you're going after like mainly pre uh, infections that have already been there? Yeah, are you going more after metals? Are you going more after pesticides? Do you find that people who have COVID usually have some other I can't even find the word. I know it's in my head. It's pre-existing condition. That's what I'm saying.
Right. So absolutely people are dealing with because so I'll give you an example actually. My my partner and I both got exposed to the one of the first strains of COVID, back in what was that, 2020 or
Yeah,
2020?
2019, 2020, something like that. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
2020. I think it was May of 2020. And he, I could tell that he was yawning a lot. And I was, and that was it. And I was laid out
Hmm.
for days, and I was still at that point dealing with some underlying root cause issues. But he barely even and you probably know some people like that, and if you're, watching this right now, you probably know some people who, like, COVID barely touched them, whereas other people just get totally taken down by it and develop long COVID and all those things. There's a reason. It's not just totally random. Some one of the I actually worked with a family who all 4 of them had long COVID. Such wonderful people, love them.
Hmm.
And one of the kids, we would get on with the kids on over Zoom sometimes, and one of the kids said, "Well, why did we all get this
Mm,
and our friends didn't? Why is this?" Because, they were like, 9 and 12 years old, and their lives are, in the bed for years. Oh, makes me upset to think about it, but they started to learn a lot about it. But the reason is because they had all been exposed to a very large amount of mold
yeah.
few years back, right? And then there are probably lots of other toxins that are in the mix as well. So
Mm,
both parents already had a heavy toxic load coming in, and then we we inherit our mother's microbiome, we inherit a lot of those toxins as well.
hmm.
So we got to look at all this, and it makes sense then that we have these family clusters because
Uh,
I definitely have families in my practice.
I love
So
this.
it's these it I wouldn't even say it's pre-existing conditions, but yes, as far as infections. But again, every single person alive on this planet is gonna have parasites. You're just you have infections in your body. But if you've been exposed to too many toxins, if you've been eating the, you know, sad diet, right? The standard American
American diet.
diet
Yeah.
for years and years and years, if you've been eating a lot of food, seed oils, if you've been exposed to mold, all these things they add up. And it's typically a different mix for everybody. And if you experienced a great deal of trauma in your
Oh,
life,
yeah.
we don't
Emotional
want to
trauma
leave that
built
out,
up over the
right?
years.
Yeah, and
Yes.
so it's this it some people have more of a trauma aspect to it than others, but there's still these underlying toxins and parasites, and when there's more trauma that hasn't been dealt with, then it creates a more toxic environment in the body, so these infections are able to come up even more. And then that creates in turn an even more toxic environment in the body because of the endotoxins that they're creating.
Mm, it is. It
So
is.
all these things build on themselves, but I really want for people to understand too that this is such a huge opportunity here if you're dealing with these things because you can take ownership. You can regain agency of your health, of your well-being by using these, approaches that I teach and that Dr. Motley teaches. And you can absolutely get there. And then you don't have to do all this searching, and you don't feel like a victim of circumstance anymore, and you don't feel like, "Why is this happening to me?" anymore.
That's
It's like,
me.
"Hey, I actually know what's going on now," right? It's these 4 things,
Yep.
period, and I'm gonna start chipping away at them, and it can take a while for some people. It took a while for me, but you can
I
do.
I think that when you say you chip away and that you can regain agency, it's because um, whenever a person had like long haul COVID, I just love how you said the little guy was like, why did my friends not get it, but I do. And when you do hone down, and people, we see it all the time when you're talking about like, what if you did, for example, found that you had high levels of mercury, which can cause high amounts of depression and high amounts of mental fatigue and fog and disorder. And if you can hone down and you can say, well, you do have long haul COVID, but we did find that there is a high amount of, let's say, Epstein-Barr virus in your body, where you had levels. So some patients come in, they have huge amounts of Epstein-Barr virus. You're right, but you know the way that God, the universe, how it allows you to get these infections to allow you to find those things to go, okay, bring some peace of heart to you. In my opinion, right? It's like, oh, I found out I had this. Yeah, that was a big driving force in your life that now you can, like you said, create agency, and you go, okay, now I know what I need to clean up. And that's why Billy doesn't get it, but I do. Like, I have this. So it's not a matter of like putting yourself into a situation where you feel negative. It's like, no, actually I'm learning more about me. And I wish, do you feel, Lori, like when people like really learn the story of themselves, when you say there's trauma, and in your family life or your family's life, well, my whole family line has their gallbladder taken out. My grandmother had hers taken out. I got mine taken out. And if we like German medicine and Chinese medicine would say, well, there's some resentment there because some individual in your life probably invaded the territory of your life. You may have been taken away from your home. You may have had somebody do something to rob you of something, and there's an emotional tie there. But if you had that trauma that's stored and then you're fighting it all your life and all of a sudden you get COVID, you would really need to go after the gallbladder and try to clean that up. And I think that some individuals out there go, yeah, I know that's the case. Like, my family life did that. Again, it's not to wallow in our own fatigue, but to really, like you just said, we have to address this part of our lives and realize that's the story of our life. Everybody is so different. Nobody's going to be the same. And I really appreciate how you're teaching that and how you're showing that. Now, with it though, like you're showing that people have agency and power, do you see those light switches that get flipped and they go, ah, yes? Is that what you see a lot when people finally find out like what they're hiding underneath?
Yeah, and sometimes it does take time,
Uh,
and I'm sure you run across this too. I can say that it's these underlying things until I'm blue in the face. But until you actually experience that, until you actually start to dig into this work and take action, it I can just keep talking about it and it's not gonna make a
mm,
difference, right?
mm,
It's a felt experience.
mm,
And I know that this was the case for me. It took time for me to start to build that confidence of I I do have some control in all of this because it had felt
ah,
so out of control for my whole life beforehand. So I totally understand when it takes time for people. Now, yes, there are some people who come in and the light bulb goes off and they're like off to the races. That's awesome too. But for the most part, it this whole thing takes time too. Yeah. And
Mm,
I love too that you brought in the generational thing. We use something called family constellations to address
mm,
that because we do often carry stuff that doesn't make any sense given our life experiences. And
mm.
it's absolutely that ancestral stuff that gets passed down in our cells, in our bodies, in our psyche, however you want to think of it. And so
Wow.
sometimes that is one of the biggest blocks that
Is
needs to be
is
addressed.
I love it. Like it does have to be addressed. Like, is that family constellation therapy? I've heard one of my friends, Christelle, does that. Is that something that you offer too in your service, like family constellation? So it's like learning if family infections or toxins or trauma can be passed down to you.
Yeah, and it's usually in this context, it usually has to do with trauma or, you know,
Mm.
I'm trying to think of an example. There was one client who she came to us and she was just not moving forward. She was trying to do everything and she was one of our super sensitives and she just wasn't able to take the protocols. And I was like, "Look, family constellation, let's do this." And it turned out that one of her ancestors had had all of this trauma and there was a whole victim perpetrator thing that had gone on, and once we cleared that, it started to cascade down, and it takes a while to unfold, but she started to be able to take the protocols, and the sensitivity
Wow.
started to calm down. So
I
it's
love
not
it.
always gonna happen that way for everybody, but sometimes that can be the linchpin there, which is so
Truly.
cool.
It is so cool. Like, because, oh man, our time, like, we got to, I mean, this is good. We can keep talking. I love these talks. But like, when people are listening, when you say like the patient found that something was, that happened in her genetic line, I think it's really interesting because when we talk about like a gene or an epigenetic, like something in your environment stresses you, I think it's pretty cool. Like, not that trauma happened, but let's say like an ancestor had to experience such stress in their life. For instance, like literally, I hate to say it, what if they were forced into a situation where they were in a dark room or they had to stay out of the sunlight, they had to work indoors, and the vitamin D receptors in their skins were not activated? That's an example. And so their genes got used to not seeing sunlight. So they're not used to getting vitamin D. And so the receptor sites start to dwindle down because I'm not getting enough vitamin D. So maybe genetically that person starts to not have sufficient amounts of vitamin D. That's an example, like a broad. And then that portion of that person's DNA gets passed down through generation to generation to generation. And what if you're the person who expresses that gene where you don't have enough vitamin D receptors? And I think that's just amazing. Unfortunate in some ways, you know what I mean? Like, why, like people say, why do I have this? I'm like, well, there could have been something in your genetic past that, why did that gene pick you? Maybe you're the one who's supposed to fix it. I don't know. I think that those things are so interesting to me, Lorrie. Like I loved what you just said. It's so interesting to me. And
Yes, and we can turn our genes off and on.
oh, talk
So
about that. You can, like, or is that like what they talk about epigenetics and such?
yes, absolutely. My the place that I come from, overall, the underlying this is my underlying belief for everything in the world is that anything is possible.
Hmm.
We just
Anything's possible.
yeah, it's a project to take a look
Yes.
at and to work out how to do it, to
Oh,
solve, to and in a playful way as much as possible.
it truly is. It's like, I mean, I got so many more questions, Laura. Oh my goodness. Okay. But I think it's one of the things, like even in when I think Wayne Dyer, he did he did one of the messages within a book called The Perfect Gene Diet, and I remember that he was talking way back in the day when it wasn't really necessarily as popular. He was talking about epigenetics. He was talking about genes and how genes get flipped on and off, and how you could eat for your gene type and actually use food to help activate certain genes that for your health. And that's what we're talking about. Like you're trying to take all that ancient wisdom and ancient knowledge and say, no, you can actually help them by doing certain things for your health now. Man, this has been a good combo. Okay, I'm not trying to switch gears too much. When we talk about, like, if individuals out there are saying, okay, we can get the 4 root causes. When they work with you, we can go through and we're going to find out if there's certain foods that they need to stop eating and such. One of the things, though, I think people would love to know, though, is nervous system regulation. You're doing EFT. Is that one of the main things? Because people out there are anxious, they're depressed. Is there something that people out there at home could do? Like, let's say they have long haul COVID, example again, and they're like, man, I'm totally anxious. Ever since I got pushed over the edge. I'm anxious all the time. Is there something that you see? Like, is it EFT tapping? Is there any other things that you would recommend?
Yeah, so we definitely do EFT tapping. We do other what are called somatic tools and exercises, practices. So there's a very simple one, just a it's we call it the butterfly hug, where you just put your hands together over your chest and you just tap at whatever, it doesn't even matter the rate. And you can probably tell just from doing this just for a couple of seconds, you start to
Yeah.
chill out,
Yeah.
right?
It feels very calming to
And
me.
then another thing that we do that I think is very important, that when we take a look at these other somatic techniques, we can kind of get to a place where we try to ignore sometimes, not always, but where we feel uncomfortable, whether it's a symptom or an emotion. And we go, "Oh my gosh, I have to fix that." And we start tapping, trying to tap it away. Whereas if we actually allow ourselves to be with that sensation, whether it's an emotion or a physical symptom, and to really get to know it and to identify where it is, either in the body or outside the body. I used to call this deep diving, but because AI is using the term deep diving for everything now, I was like,
You're like, we're not
oh, I
doing that
mean, I love
anymore.
I love AI, but I'm seeing that term everywhere. So I got to come up with another term for it. But it's really just becoming comfortable and okay with feeling your emotions and feeling your physical sensations, right? So the combination of those different types of approaches is what we use. We don't rely on only one approach, but certainly EFT tapping is so, and it's all over the internet for free. Like, go take advantage of that, do tapping for 15 minutes a day and you're going to
Oh yeah.
notice a huge difference.
I I'm with you. I think, like, for instance, I use myself as an example. I had a stomach surgery in 2017, but one of the things that I realized that I was not paying attention to, that I often tried to hinder, was the sensation around my stomach because there's a ruptured ulcer. But one of the things I found was when I had Lyme infections, I had very weak legs, and I always got cramps. That, guys, this has a point to it. I always got cramps when I was driving my car on my shin bones. You guys would think, what are you talking about, your shin muscles? My body, my family line has stomach worry. The stomach will actually decrease its function. What does what? It basically reduces your acid output or changes it. Your digestion gets off, but worry will actually affect the energy of the stomach. And I always was a worry. I had ulcer when I was a kid. I had one when I was older. And I think my body got so used to basically that reduction of energy through my stomach meridian. I could tell. And where does the stomach meridian run? Right down your shin bones. And we think it's crazy to think that way. But when I am at my best, when I'm working on it, Lorrie, I talk to my stomach, and people think you're the guys weird talking about it, but I talk to my stomach. And when I just be like you're saying, and I let go of my diaphragm and I go, I'm really here to listen. What do you want me to say? First, you're running too hard. And everybody out there knows you're running too hard. And then I'll feel this energy go right through my stomach, down through my pelvis, right through my shin bones. And I'm telling you, it happens. And my feet get warm because they were so used to being cold because there's no chi going through them because my stomach was so tight from worry. that's a really broad example. But what you're just saying is like when you're being and you're okay with the symptoms. A lot of times I find people that have like, oh, my chest, my heart. I'm like, it's the worry that's creating the block that's making you anticipate the injury to the heart area. Whereas your heart may be wanting to talk to you. If you let the chi flow to it, it may take the information, just run with it. So I think that's one of the most beautiful things like you're talking about is learning how to be and learning how to let the energy flow through that area. I believe it's our preconceived or not preconceived. It's our pre-programming from years or from generations that keep the energy blocked in that area. It gets cold, it gets dry, it gets hardened. And then, oh, I can't let energy go through that. I can't let energy go through that. And I'm like, no, that's the key. And I may be getting on a soapbox about it, but I'm with you. Like when you said it triggered, like, I mean, we would think this, Lord. We think, oh, you just got shin muscles because you don't do enough magnesium. No, it could be. It could be. But when I take all the magnesium in the world and my shins keep on cramping up, what is it? That stomach is tired and it's trying to talk to me and say, Chris, you got too much worry, dude. And I think practitioners and healers such as yourself, Lorrie, like try to show people things in that way is like the key to people's healing. And I'm really thankful that we can talk like with your books and such. Which can you tell us? Okay, I'm sorry I went on that soapbox, Lorrie, but what like some of the
I
books
love
that
that
you?
story, Dr. Motley. I love, love, love that story. That's the
Oh,
perfect illustration. Yeah.
oh, I appreciate it. I mean, it's like personal experience. You and I both had these personal experiences. I'm like, I'm not picking on anybody. It's what happened to me, and I think that when we are you and I talking about really learning how to talk with our body, that's one of my keys when I work with people. I said I can help you till I'm blue in the face, but there are certain organs that you're not communicating with, and there's a reason why. That's a big key, and that's why I think with your writings and when you're talking about books and such, uh, that's what I love when people talk about psychosomatic body and brain together, body and soul and mind. Are there I know it's your books. I want you to mention yours too. I mean, like what are some of the writings that you think would help people the most? I mean, in this area in general and most. I love hearing your book thoughts. I love hearing books that you like.
Wow. I the ones that come to mind right now are ones that I read way back, kind of my first exposure to body mind connection.
Mm.
One of them is called Loving What Is by
Mm.
Byron Katie.
Oh, I've heard it. My friend said it changed her life. My friend
It's
Lindsay said that.
amazing. She's still around. I communicated with her a couple of times back in the day. It's an amazing book. And then Pema Chodron, and I'm probably just really super mispronouncing that name. I can't remember the name of that book right now, but she's a Buddhist nun and just has some wonderful writings out there. And of course, Wayne Dyer.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that after we finish, I'm gonna be like, oh
No,
my
no, that's
gosh,
the
what
key
these
though.
other great,
Lori, like you have our contact.
resources.
Yeah, if you do find, just let us know and we'll put them up there. This is like for people to know you even more. This is great. You're already famous, so it's not even like you need more like stuff, but still we want to help out. But um
Oh, When Things Fall Apart. That's the Pema Chodron one.
when things fall
Or
apart.
Pima, or, however you pronounce her name.
Okay, when things fall apart. Yeah, so Chrissy, be like when things fall apart, loving what is. That way we can put those on the show notes, and so people can know that we can like have some extra stuff, when so we don't want people leaving the podcast and going, oh, I don't even know where to start. I'm like, no, we want to give you some resources. This is going to be amazing. So, man,
Yeah,
we've
and
covered a
I'll give you some more resources as far as other things to look into. Yeah, for
well.
sure.
I mean, this is really a good combo. Like, we got to swap out podcast, not because I'm trying to like get on your podcast, but I think it's great. I love our combos. This is really good.
I do too. I was gonna ask you to be on my podcast anyway, but now I know
Oh,
what we can talk about, and I'm super excited about that. We'll get that set up for
oh,
sure.
well, we're gonna do it, and I just want to say, I mean, happy birthday.
Thank you.
You look great, 50 years old, rocking it. Okay. I do have a quirky side. Most people say I'm quirky. I get it. I understand. I think it's what all the years of treating people for 20 something years, and you get in your own head a little bit. I'm sorry. It's how I am. But
I don't I think I only mostly communicate with, quote, "quirky people," so I find you good quirky, if that
yeah,
makes
you're not
sense.
that odd quirky. I'll say that. I think it's really funny though. Like for everybody out there listening, if you like uh, at the office, I may have told this story before, but um, the other office, they have these two locations, and one of them I love everybody there. And Lori, they got like a whole bunch of different doctors and practitioners. And I was in my room one day, and one of my close friends, she's walking down describing the building to another person. He goes, "Oh yeah, this is where such and such. Oh, and this is Dr. Motley's room. Da, da, da. He's a good he's a taller, skinny guy. Kind of he's really quirky. He's really quirky." And then she didn't even know I was there, and I was like, guess it's better than being a jerk or something, you know. So I'm like, that's great, you know. But
I think it's a compliment,
I hope it is.
for sure.
um, but for okay, so this is great. We're having a good convo. We'll continue on another podcast, and I really mean that. And can you tell people? I mean, on your uh, Instagram feed, I know you're at Lorrie Rivers, I believe. But if there's anything extra, let us know. Like, what website? How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so LorrieRiversHolistic.com.
Okay.
And we have two different types of group programs. We have our heal programs, and that's for you if you have chronic health issues and things like that. And then we have our thrive programs, and that's
Mm.
more about optimization. That's also, we have our menopause revolution program, which I'm super excited about, which teaches you how to use bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, things like that. So you can find those there. We'll definitely include a link for that. And we do registration for most of those programs at different times throughout the year. So if you're interested in a certain program, like we're doing the Liver Love program, we'll have finished that by the time I think you're watching this. But you can get on the wait list. Yeah.
Mm,
And
that's
we do offer a lot of free resources as well, but, um, yeah, our group programs are really great. We do some individual coaching as well, if
mm,
you're interested in that, and yeah, just lots of fun things. It's a really beautiful community that we have too, where people are going through the same kinds of things. So, which I think is super important in the chronic illness community, because a lot of the, not to bash the Facebook groups that are out there, but they can tend to be pretty negative
mm,
and depressing. And our group is very moderated, meaning that, we don't allow negative comments. They have to be forward facing. So it's
oh,
a very supportive place and other people who understand exactly what you're dealing with. Whereas
yes,
when you're dealing with these chronic illnesses, your family might not understand, your friends might not understand. So, yeah,
I love it. No, this is great. I want people to look into both programs, and I want you to look at her website, look at her Instagram posts, and I look forward to speaking with you again and chatting. I think that we can have really great conversations. And everybody out there, if you wanted to, you like our conversation, please comment on it, like it, subscribe if you would desire, and then send it to somebody who needs this kind of information. If you yourself or you know somebody who had long haul COVID, who has Lyme disease, parasites, chronic infections, things like that, they feel like they got pushed over the edge, they can't get ahead, please listen to this podcast. Look at the information that Lorrie has. Lorrie, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
it was absolutely a pleasure and so much fun talking to you, Dr. Motley.
Oh,
So
oh,
great.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Same here. I really do. And I hope it was like really smooth and easy. Everybody out there, please give Lorrie a follow. We love y'all. We hope that everybody has a great day today. Until the next time, from all of us here at the Ancient Health Podcast, enjoy the day and be blessed.